I have the pleasure to be joined by Miss GB, Natasha Jonas. We're at Bronx Boxing Club. Nearly didn't get that out. I mean, Natasha, a great open workout with the kids all behind us working out. I mean, do you remember being that age, going into these kind of massive occasions with your favourite fighters as well?
To be honest, I was a lot older when I got involved in boxing, so I was never that age. But it's nice that they've got their opportunity, you know, big fuss, Sky cameras are down here, chance to be on telly, chance for the mates to have a look and then say. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for them, and it's nice to interact with young boxers and you know, answer a few questions, let them hold the belts and hopefully inspire someone.
Definitely. When you first walked into a boxing gym, Tasha, what made you stay in that gym? What made you keep coming back?
I think at the time I was a long time not doing sports and I'd lost my way a little bit. I'd lost a lot of confidence. But when I came back for the first time in a very long time and I'd done the session, I pushed myself. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to keep going back and I'm going to keep pushing myself. And then eventually they said, well, we think you're good enough to have a fight. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. So doors kept on opening, and it was just, it was initially just that drive and motivation to be and do better every session.
Do you remember that first ever competitive fight that you have, or it might have been a spar or anything? Do you remember that first fight that you had?
Yeah, the first fight I had was against Anastasia Cousins, who became one of my very close friends within boxing. And it was in the Adelphi Hotel in Liverpool on a club show. And I stopped at him round 2 or 3, I think it was. So yeah, I thought boxing was great then.
And what was the fight, would you say, that you learned from the most? It could have even been a win, but what would you say the fight is that you learned from the most?
I think I remember going to my first ever international competition for GB, and I lost because the jump up from domestic level to international level was huge. And I went to my first couple of tournaments and would, you know, go out every time first. And it was only then when I seen the standards that I knew where I needed to be. So I kept on. My amateur club was really good on funding me to go to international tournaments to get that experience and get better. And then obviously the accolades speak for themselves as I grew and developed as a boxer.
Definitely, and as well, when you obviously, how long before was that moment until the 2012 Olympics? Was there a long period between that moment and 2012?
Yeah, I mean, I'd won a couple of EUs and Strangers and all multi tournaments and stuff. But when we first got on GB, we was the kind of team that you probably wanted to draw in a tournament. By the end of that, you know, by coming from 2012, we was definitely the team you didn't want to draw. You know, the funding that we got meant that we could train full time. Meant that we had the best coaches, you know, support staff, and just the GB setup within itself, and that was a credit to them, how quick the improvement was.
And how, obviously, there's talk about funding in boxing all around the country now, not just with Team GB back then, but would you say that extra funding was absolutely fundamental to the success of London 2012 when British boxing really had a massive injection as well?
I would say so. I mean, that was the first ever programme, so we've got nothing else to compare it to. But, you know, the male team have always been strong, and that's because they'd always had that. You know, as England, we didn't even have a kit for a very long time. We didn't, you know, we were sharing tops, we were kind of funding ourselves to go to the tournament and getting it reimbursed months and months later. So it was like at our expense for a long time. And then, you know, you become this funded athlete. You're in, you know, accommodation paid for, food's paid for, best coaches in the country, best support staff, and you can go into every single tournament that's available. You can only get better.
Definitely as well. And I want to jump to the professionals now, and I want to kind of skip a few years. I want to talk about a fight that was really the first fight I think I ever watched of your career, Tasha. Was that fight with Terry Harper, Matcham Square Garden? I mean, it was probably one of the best female fights I've ever seen, if not ever. Do you ever reflect on that draw with Terry Harper? Because I know you didn't get the world title that night, but my God, it was a sensational fight between you two.
Yeah, well, I went in with a game plan. And then really early on, I got cut, and it was quite bad. So I knew that I had to protect the cut, and I was scared. It was deemed an accidental head clash, I think. So I knew that I didn't want it to be stopped on the scorecard. So I knew I had to, fight a fight and try and protect it, but still go for it. And when the result was red, I was hugely disappointed. But in the bigger sense of boxing, I think people then realised, because after Obanov, people were like, oh, she's too old, she's too this, she's too that, she's too this. Terry's too this, and too that. And they expected her to just brush me aside. So I think I got the respect of fans after that, and then obviously jumped straight into the Katie Taylor. Again, I didn't win, but it was such a close fight that people appreciated that. They always kind of didn't know whether I was world level, and I think they appreciated that I was after that.
Definitely. And then after those two fights, kind of obviously you joined up with Boxer, and kind of that was when your journey to being the pound for pound star, kind of like you said in our previous interview, you started proving yourself right in that regard, winning those world titles. If you had to pick one of those world title wins, and you can't say Friday night, what one would you say kind of you look fondly on the most? Which world title?
Oh, it's got to be the WBO, the Amir Khan Kelbrook undercard. Huge occasion in Manchester. All my family and friends were there. I was a late addition to the bill. We didn't know if it was going to be on or not, because a couple of opponents couldn't get sanctioned and whatever. One got COVID, I think, as well at the time. And then I got in and won, and won in the second round as well. So it was huge pressure. There was, my third world title attempt at a third different weight, and if I lost, there was nowhere to go. So I was just like, right, I have to win this. And the first emotion I felt was relief. I'd finally proved myself right.
Definitely. And what do you remember what Joe Gallagher kind of said? Obviously, you and Joe, the relationship, everything you talk about in every single interview, it's a sensational relationship that you guys have. Do you remember what he said after you won that world title?
I don't really remember exactly what he said, but I remember looking back at the video footage from that night, and he goes to run towards me, and I just run to the post and jump up on the post. So that was quite funny. But he was just immensely proud, and saying, "We finally did it. You finally did it."
Definitely as well. And I do want to touch on kind of a legend that has been in your camp as well for the last couple of weeks, obviously with Muhammad Alakel, is Roberto Duran. Obviously, there was a lot made up in Riyadh of kind of Muhammad Alakel learning from Roberto Duran, which he was, but also you were also learning from him as well. I mean, what's it like having a legend like Roberto Duran kind of in and around the gym?
When I first saw him, I looked at it, I thought, is it? And I was double taking, thinking, is it? And then, it was. And I mean, do you know what? He doesn't say anything that's like that you think, wow, mind blown. It's very simple, but obviously in boxing, the simple things, if you do the simple things correct, and that's all you need. So I think as fighters and as time develops and progression, and you trying to make it more complicated than it needs to be. He was just, and he's very calm in the way he sells you. And he was predominantly there for Mo, but he stayed for everyone's bag work, for everyone's spar. He'd shout you over in spar and say, try this, and then after one of the sessions, he'd come back and said, I watched the fight last night. So he actually went away, did some homework, came back. I was like, I think you need to do a bit more of this. So I was like, oh, yeah, go ahead.
Do you know what fight he watched? Did he say which one?
He didn't say. He said, I watched a couple of fights last night. I was like, okay. I was thinking to myself, hopefully it was the ones I won.
Definitely as well. I mean, Tasha, I'll leave it there because I think I've kept you long enough. But any final words for the fans who are waiting to watch this massive unification with Lauren Price on Friday night?
You don't have to pick a side, just tune in, and thank you for the support.
Miss GB, thank you very much as always. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.